Absolute pleasure to be here today. I have so many familiar faces on the line. Really excited to share some of our research updates. I have been working on the Simon Searchlight study now for about 6 years. And just to give some perspective of how I'll be presenting the information is I'm a basic scientist by training turned genetic counselor. So unlike Dr. Palmer, who is a clinician and can give like clinical advice, I'll be presenting the research from like a researcher perspective, presenting what we have. But we can definitely look to Dr. Palmer for any clinical guidance or interpretations of what this might mean for our families. I'm representing a large group of people. So there's many people behind the scenes. I know previously Dr. Katina Kalakos has presented to the community, Dr. Paul Wang, other members. And so we have genetic counselors on our research study, clinicians, data specialists, database management team, and so many more coordination team working on this effort. So I'm one of many people that you might interact with on a day-to-day working on this research study. We also have a community advisory committee. Shout out to Rebecca, who served on our committee recently, who provide guidance on many different types of efforts that we have ongoing. And so we had this researcher outreach effort that Rebecca was able to help with and give a stakeholder perspective guidance for this resource. So as presented already, Simon Searchlight is a research registry. We include CLCN4 in addition to other neurodevelopmental conditions. We are international with the goal of accelerating science and improving the lives of people with these rare genetic neurodevelopmental disorders. I'll give a little bit of background for the people who might not be as familiar with our research study and then dive into some of the data that we have. But we have really 5 main goals. But if you were to walk away from this talk, remembering just a few key points, I really want to highlight point 1 and point 3 to everybody here. So point 1 is we spend the majority of our time collecting medical, behavioral, biological samples from our families. We do data cleaning, curation, and this is really where we're spending the majority of our time, as well as synthesizing and giving information back to our families. But the ultimate goal and what we're really trying to do is get this information de-identified into the hands of qualified researchers worldwide. And so the data that gets requested through Safari Base, that's our platform, is free for the researchers and it's free for the families to participate. And we really are trying to lower the barrier of access to these rare genetic neurodevelopmental conditions. There's also a pathway for researchers to recontact families. So researchers who have projects that are relevant for families locally based on geography, based on variant, based on genetic condition or conditions, they can find you. So by participating and sharing that information, researchers can recontact and implement surveys within our registry that we might not already have so that they can ask further deeper questions into any sort of medical features, conditions that they want to learn more about. Ultimately, how families might see this play out and learn more about the community is that these research publications that I know have been shared in the chat, that our data is being used in over 130 at this point. We have almost 140 publications that has used our data. And so this is getting into the hands of researchers, but that's how researchers communicate what's going on to other researchers. So that is the highlight of the goals of our research study. CLCN4 has been on our gene list since about 2021. This is the broad spectrum of conditions we include, but participants can register and participate in English, German, Spanish, French, Italian, Dutch, and Portuguese. So at this time, we've added more languages for participation. As we hear that there's other languages to prioritize, that's really important feedback for us. Rare genetic conditions are international, should collaborate internationally. That's a tenet that we've always felt is really pivotal for making a difference and making an impact with rare conditions. So we'll add more languages as we can, and as we hear that there are certain ones that are really coming out where there's larger communities present. But this is what we have currently for our research study. So we collect information from families. We have these 15 current surveys that we have information across various domains. We are looking at the genetic lab report. That's a one-time, or what we look at as baseline piece of information. And then we ask medical history and sleep history and seizure history and other developmental pieces that might change over somebody's age range or time frame over time. So we have annual surveys that we follow up with, and the majority of which that you see are first time point, really good to understand where the person is at. Some of these surveys are publisher measures. So unfortunately, we're not able to always translate every single survey. Some of these surveys we've created in-house, and we do translate those into the other languages that we have supported. Information back to the families looks different in a few different ways. Obviously, research for researcher conferences and presentations. So we present to researchers, we present to families. We also have these summary snapshots. So I'm showing the most recent one that was created. About every 3 months, our data team, along with our communications team, work together to do a research highlight of what is being reported within our registry. These summary snapshots are available publicly on our website. So even if a family doesn't feel comfortable or cannot participate, they can still benefit from the learnings of what we're finding within our registry and what's being reported. Families can take something like this to their therapist, their physical therapist, occupational therapist, clinician, daycare worker, anyone who might want to learn a little bit more about the condition. We have had experts in various places in the world email us and say, I just got handed this, can we learn more? And now I will also be pointing them to the wonderful welcome guide that the Cure CLCN4 has created for the community as well. And then also we have some personalized reports. So I've done the dots backwards, but we do have some personalized reports that's available just for participants. So for example, seizure history survey. When you do a seizure history survey for yourself or your loved one, we're able to create a comparison snapshot of where your answers fall within the greater CLCN4 community. So our database team has created sort of this live registry snapshot for participants. And then the last background step is just how researchers get this information and can request biological samples or data. Takes a little bit of paperwork steps, but in general, we're not trying to create a barrier. And actually, in 2025, our Safari-based team took one barrier away. So there was a few paperwork steps, and one of the paperwork steps was removed in order to make it even easier for researchers to access this information while maintaining the highest standards of security and protection for our participants. And what researchers would do is they come online to base.safari.org, that's the website, Safari Base, and they affiliate what institution, pharma, industry. We work with all sorts of researchers, any type. They come and they create an account. And then what they do is they state what they're going to do with this data or samples and who's going to be handling every single piece of information they get from us. So that's an important sort of ethical understanding step that we ask for. And then there is a quick review and approval of the request. And an example of requests that most of them get approved. An example when we are unable to approve a request is usually that we don't have the available resources that they're asking for, or there was a problem with the paperwork. But our Safari-based team really does work with the researchers to try to find a solution for whatever issues researchers are having, as well as helping with any questions or walking through the various steps that it takes. So if there's any questions about Safari Base, just pointing the researchers in the room, and if you're in contact with any researchers, to the SDBR, the Safari Database Biorepository team at Simons Foundation. So now going into the data that we have within the registry. Right now, we've pulled out individuals that have a variant with CLCN4 and maternal carriers, so mother carriers that also have a genetic variant in CLCN4. And we do actually want medical information on the maternal carriers. So here, what you can see with the different steps, first with signing up online, we have the first meaningful data point when a family shares their genetics lab report. So we have 43 genetics lab reports currently submitted within our registry system for carriers, for individuals. And then we have 11 carriers within our registry. Then once a genetics lab report gets approved, we unlock the survey participation. So we count medical history as a very important data point because it asks about every single body system. It's one of the highlights of the data that I'm going to show today. But at the same time, other surveys are available. So that's why you can see sometimes some of these other smaller surveys are easier to complete. And we do have more people completing some of these other surveys available within our registry. And then we have six samples that were provided by people with a CLCN4 related disorder. What we're learning from the experts that are doing the variant functional testing. So we're showing the pathogenic and likely pathogenic variants now. In the previous numbers, we include the variants of uncertain significance as well. So researchers do get that information. We are not removing anyone from the registry. We include the variants of uncertain significance, the likely pathogenic, and the pathogenic variants. But for our data summaries, we only usually show the summaries including people that we are confirmed or know that the variant is likely associated with the condition, just so that our data summary is a little more accurate in case the variants of uncertain significance turns out not to be related to CLCN4. And so that's not to say that the research participation is not important. It's very important. For our data summary, we've just excluded that. So the numbers are coming down just to show a subset of people here. And as mentioned, we're learning from the community about the functional effects, and that's highlighted here with the different colors about what has been published and studied right now with the variant spectrum within CLCN4. Here you can appreciate the spread of the different type of variants, but as well along the protein here that's symbolized, there isn't one particular region per se that it seems like if it's in this region, it's going to be this possible function. In general, most of the variants need to be tested by an expert on the call or an expert in the field in order to understand what the variant is doing. And we do have some of these variants highlighted in gray that haven't been tested or haven't been published yet that we've been able to access. The other thing I'm including here that I wanted to remember to say is genetics. We learn something. I learn something every single day, and I deal with genetics on a daily basis. But we do have one paternal carrier with a CLCN4 variant in our registry who has 2 children with the CLCN4 related disorder. Now, where people are living in the world participating in Simon Searchlight. So we have in blue the represented 83 countries where in general we have Simon Searchlight families. In yellow, you have the points as to where the CLCN4 families are located. So we do have majority of our families participating in North America and Europe, as represented also by the requested languages that we have within our registry. We have a large European contingent in general in Simon Searchlight, but we do have people participating in many of the other countries around the world. We have the 6 biological samples, the 6 blood samples that have been donated to our research study. And as mentioned, we are creating iPSCs. We are creating induced pluripotent stem cells for the CLCN4 community. This is a breakdown of where they're at right now. Unfortunately, number two, we've had one that was not able to be created. It was attempted, I believe, several times. And it wasn't a line that we were able to complete. Number three and four are completed, but because it's an excellent condition, it needs to go an additional screening that isn't routine within our system. We don't have that many excellent condition iPSCs, but we are learning that excellent conditions, when there is a reprogramming, so when a blood sample is contributed, and then there's this reprogramming that happens to create these stem cells, sometimes the X that has the genetic variant is turned off. And we've seen that in another genetic condition in our registry where we tried to create iPSCs, and almost all of the X chromosome that had the variant that researchers wanted to study was silenced or turned off. So that wouldn't be a representative, that wouldn't be a very helpful cell line for researchers to access. So we've created the iPSCs, but these particular cell lines and the other additional two that are in current reprogramming will have to undergo, if it is from a female carrier, I didn't add sex on the slide, I apologize, but if it is a female carrier, then what we'll have to do is also this double checking special step to make sure that the variant was not silenced in the cell line created. Now I'll be highlighting data from a few different data sources within our registry. What you're going to notice is the numbers of the people, the total numbers of people that have filled out the surveys might jump around a little bit because it really depends on how many people have completed that particular survey. So starting with medical history, so our medical history survey, we have a summary here for 21 individuals. This is 6 more individuals than the last time this was presented. We have 5 males, and we have, let me cover there, 16 females represented here. The numbers don't add up. I apologize. There was some manual adjustment that our team did to remove female maternal carriers. So I apologize. Some of the numbers are suspiciously not adding up. But in general, the medical history here we're seeing is for majority females participating in Simon's Searchlight. And they're quite young. They're on average under the age of 18. But what you're really seeing here is they're mostly under the age of 14, if not 10, within our registry. So quite young. As people participate longitudinally over time, which is our goal within Simon's Searchlight, we want to track and learn about people over time. This might change the understanding and also the medical features described within the community. So a lot of the information I'm going to show is not new. The reporting is very consistent within what is being described in the medical literature. So individuals with CLCN4 related disorder have challenges with language and language delays or impairment, as well as intellectual disability or developmental delay. And what I'm showing here is this is a symbol to remind me to say that I did a quick statistical comparison of what is being reported in the medical literature by the gene reviews, taking the numbers from the gene reviews that Dr. Palmer wrote with colleagues to look at the frequency of a particular medical condition and the frequency it's reported within our registry. Because obviously in the medical literature, the information is being taken from the clinician or an evaluation. And within our registry, we have parent-reported information. What we've seen in other genetic conditions is parents are very reliable reporters. And you're going to see that highlighted with some of the data, with some of the medical features that I was able to do this very quick statistical analysis to see that the frequency being reported by our parents are on par. They are not statistically different than what is being reported in the medical literature. So that is this first data point here, which is intellectual disability and developmental delay being somewhat reported at the same rate as what is being reported in the medical literature. Here is medical condition overview by body system, ranked from most commonly reported to least for the 21 individuals. And then for many of these body issues, I'm going to give a little more detail and show the breakdown of what people are finding on the upcoming slides. But to highlight once again, when comparing seizure frequency within our registry and gastrointestinal issues within our registry, the rate was similar as what is being reported by the medical literature. So for neurological issues, most often we're seeing low muscle tone and a difference in head sizes, as well as movement challenges. Low muscle tone, once again, I think is the last one that I did the quick comparison, is very similar to the rate of what's being described within the medical literature. Seizures here, I'm showing the seizure information from the medical history survey, as well as the seizure information from the seizure history survey. So that's why the numbers are going to look different, because now this is a different data point. Has a different number of people that have filled out the seizure history survey. Another very important survey within our research registry. But within the seizure history survey, what we're seeing is the average seizure age is around 1.5 years for people who have reported seizures. That's a total of 7 people who have completed the seizure history survey, ranging from an onset of 3 months to 3 years. Of those 7 people, 4 people have ever taken a seizure medication. All 4 have reported continuing taking that medication, but all 4 have reported control of their seizures. Average age of control being around 2 years through 7 years with the seizure medication. For vision, another common reported challenge within the community, we have a various set of vision issues. And I should say for any of the body systems covered, a person can have more than one of these reported issues or challenges. So I believe it's 10 people total that have reported any vision issues. This is the spread of findings that we have within our community. Most often the cross-eyed, the strabismus challenge within the registry. Just a few more slides from the medical history for endocrinological issues. Most often, although it's quite rare in general, is the failure to thrive is being reported as a challenge. And to highlight, because there was a question within the chat, one person has ever reported precocious puberty within the registry. Most often, precocious puberty is defined as puberty before the age of 8 or so. Within our registry, we do ask when puberty onset happened. So if researchers wanted to learn more, and if there were, and we ask about puberty in general as people are coming to the age of puberty. So we do collect information on puberty in our medical history. We start showing puberty questions around the age of 8. But we ask about precocious puberty from very early on. So if it is happening, families are able to report it and researchers are able to learn about that difference or medical issue. Orthopedic findings are very rare. It seems as though there's a few people reporting spine or vertebral challenges, vertebral differences. So we have scoliosis, kyphosis, the different curvatures of the spine, and vertebral differences. And then I believe this is the last slide, just to say kidney findings, again, are very rare, but this is what we're finding within a few people in Simon Searchlight in our age range up to the age of 35. Might change over time as our community ages, but it's a young community, and this is what we have reported one-off right now. Oh, sorry, and one more slide on gastrointestinal issues. And again, not as surprising that constipation is popping up as a challenge, but also acid reflux. So this is the GERD, this esophageal reflux that happens, that is happening in about 1 in 4 people within our registry. So now this last data summary that I'll show is the Vineland Adaptive Behavioral Scale. This is another quite large survey within our research registry, although it can be very informative for researchers. So we apologize that it does take so long, but it is really helpful for researchers to understand potentially where people are in their development. So I'm going to show you the data summary we have for 13 people that have filled out the Vineland Adaptive Behavioral Scale with a pathogenic or likely pathogenic variant. But we did highlight the Vineland in our summary report, our quarterly summary back in January, February, like our early 2025 quarterly report. There was 12 people summarized. So this won't be a big difference from the last time this was presented. But the Vineland can be very helpful because it asks about different adaptive functioning levels of a person. And then researchers are able to create sort of a developmental curve for that individual person or the data or the across the spectrum of ages. So we would say to take all of this information with a grain of salt. It's not a predictive determinant of every person. It's a small number of people that have provided the information, and we're not showing any longitudinal information at this time. So somebody's curve might look very different than somebody else's, but we're showing an average one time point for every person across different ages. Here across the bottom, you'll see the age that the person was at the time of the survey completion. Across this axis, across the vertical axis, we have how the general population age aligns with the questions. So in this is the comparison of where the general population might have answered these questions for expressive language development, which we know is a challenge for our families. In general, the population usually over the age of 1 or so uses single words to request or make requests vocally. And what we have within our registry is that about 45% of individuals are likely to be using language at the age of 4 and older, with quite a spread still amongst our different participants that we have information here about. Next, summarizing personal care skills, another Vineland domain that is covered in our questions. The dotted line here is the time point at which, in general, people feed themselves with a fork and spoon in the general population, as well as this upper line is when someone is able to dress themselves on average. You can see here this line in general is in the upward slanting direction, which is suggesting a gain of skills over time. And 70% of individuals within our data are likely to be feeding themselves by the age of 4 and older. Oops. Okay, and now for this last touch point of the information at the Vineland domain that I'll be presenting is the social development and the social challenges for people with CLCN4. The lower line here is the time point in general when people usually make eye contact during social interactions, and the upper line choosing good friends in social context. And so on average, about 30% of individuals are likely to be making eye contact at the age 4 and older with CLCN4 within the data that we have in our registry. My last 2 slides I believe I have is the summary that common issues are intellectual disability, developmental delay, language challenges and impairment, as well as neurological issues, low muscle tone, differences in head size and movement issues, as well as vision challenges. Other issues reported and as summarized previously are autism, gastrointestinal issues, seizures, endocrinological issues, specifically failure to thrive being maybe more common, although still a very low number out of all the people we've asked, and some adaptive behavioral challenges in development. Simon Searchlight, once again, just giving a little more summary and background. We've been around for 15 years. We are not going away anytime soon. We are funded for the long term through the Simons Foundation. And so that's where we get our funding. We are international, as we mentioned, have this diverse team that works together. We're a very passionate team to help our families, very passionate about the research and making a difference, every single one of us. We prioritize the sharing data back because we think that's the most useful today for families to learn and understand what we have from other families that participate in the community. And then we do this all with keeping in mind data security and utmost high standards of the stewards of the data. So we are compliant with GDPR, the European Ethics of Human Research Participation, as well as North America and other regions of data security law that help guide our registry. You can email any questions, like I'll take questions today, absolutely. But you can also email any questions to our coordinator email at simonsearchlight.org. I'm one of the people that manage this inbox. I'm one of the several people that manage this inbox. So it might be me who responds to your questions or other members of the team. You can follow any changes, progress that is being made through our social media channels. And then also any researchers, you can share this base.safari.org website who might be interested in gaining access to the data and biological samples that we have available.